bummed out that I'm really looking forward to the Northern Mentor thing. I think that's part of the challenge. I have these questions that take like 1 minute. Google can't answer the question, but like if I could just pick up the phone and be like, hey, and somebody, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that was, well, actually, I'm running in February. That's just the first step.
Yeah. I'm with you.
But it's a good first step. Be quiet.
Are we good to go?
Yeah.
All right, guys. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. I'm up here alone today because my whole team bailed on me, but they are probably with us here on the live stream, so I'm not going to talk any trash. Is it anybody's first 1 Million Cups today? All right, we got one taker. Welcome. So 1 Million Cups is kind of our version of Shark Tank, but we tend to call it more Dolphin Tank. We're here to support and engage, and yeah, looking at DP. Support and engage with entrepreneurs in our community, learn about their business, and then offer our Insight Ask questions. So short presentation, long question and answer segment. So announcements for today. We are not going to have an event here next week. We're going to host it at Industrious instead and do a social, because we didn't have a presenter lined up. So just everybody meet same time, but at Industrious, and the whole time we'll be networking. So please mark that down, don't come here. And I will send out email if you're on our newsletter to remind you. So also about Industrious, they are having an event. They're having a lunch and learn this afternoon. Allie Marsh with Tech Break is doing a lunch and learn, I think called Power Down to Power Up. So if anybody is interested in attending that, you're welcome to go over and work at Industrious this afternoon before lunch and learn, and then stay for some lunch and good talk. And I know it's something I'm super interested in hearing Allie's talk, so if anyone wants to do it with me, let's do that. And then I think that's it for announcements. DP?
If one were interested in hashtagging a photo or something for 1 million cups.
Hashtag 1 Million Cups Madison. Just kidding, 1MC Madison. Don't spell it out. Thank our sponsors, the library, Field 59 for the live stream, Crescendo. I was also coffee today, all muscles like Michael. Those guys are the nicest people over there. So if you ever need to stop for coffee and you're in the Monroe area, definitely support them because they've been great for us. And then Old National Bank for sponsoring us. Yeah.
Quick question. I used to have to get the newsletter, and now I don't. How do you sign up for it?
It probably is just because I don't send out the newsletter anymore. You're probably still on our list.
But it's a great newsletter otherwise.
It's fantastic, so I'll get back on that. But that is all the announcements I have. With that, I'm Diana Pastrana with M&M Office Interiors. We start over.
Oh.
Sorry, put you on the spot. You looked at your phone right when I said it.
My name's Lee Lazar. I'm a commercial insurance agent with Associated Agencies.
I'm Tara Grace. I'm a business banker with State Bank of Cross Plains, specializing in startup and SBA.
My name's Trezzy. I'm a software accessibility consultant and one of the co-founders of Roll for Guild.
I'm Quigley. I'm the other co-founder of Roll for Guild.
I'm Oli. I'm a multimedia specialist at WISC-TV.
I'm DP Knutson with Collaborator Creative. I collaborate with a wide variety of individuals and companies on everything from custom writing to nonfiction branding. And I do have a book that Spencer X. Smith and I created called Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind. And it's available at Amazon or from me. And don't miss the Rotoma podcast with new episodes every Monday. Find it wherever you find your quality podcasts.
I'm Josh Helling. I previously co-founded an internet security services startup, sold it, and just recently left the acquirer, where I'd worked for a while, so I'm now in between projects.
My name is Matt. I am trying to launch a tech startup out of 100 State. It is B2B SaaS in employee engagement.
My name's Max. I'm a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin, and I'm an intern at Starting Block.
I'm Lucas, startup team strategist for Starting Block.
I'm Trent. I'm a student at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Dennis Varnum. Among many things, I'm a Merlin mentor, and I run the pitch and replay at the Badger Startup Summit. which is the inaugural event for Board Fest this August.
Morning, I'm Alex Ryan. I'm the founder of Prairie Light Solar, a renewable energy consulting company.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Knockreiner. I am with Ridgetop Consulting, and our area of emphasis is cybersecurity.
Chris Figaro, I'm a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch.
Aiden Winnery, customer success at HealthFinch.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach Blumenfeld with Third Space and CultureCon. We have an event coming up February 13th, Mini CultureCon at the Concourse. Tickets are available online, cultureconusa.org. Thank you.
I'm Cassidy Wartenweiler. I'm with Wisconsin Technology Council. I'm in charge of business development and member relations. I just want to let everyone know that today is the deadline for if you want to apply for the Governor's Business Plan Contest. 250 words to submit. It's free, and just go to govsbusinessplan.com.
Good morning, I'm Lori Carlson. I own Madison Greenbox, and as I mentioned last time, I'm thinking about possibly selling my business in the next few months, so please, if you know of anyone who might have an interest, send them my way. I'd appreciate it.
Good morning, my name is Derek Gebler. I'm the CEO and founder of Field 59. Field 59 is an online video platform for media companies. We work with television stations, radio stations, and newspapers.
My name is Mitch DeWitt, and I'm a financial advisor at Walkner Condon Financial Advisors. We are a fee-only registered investment advisor.
My name is Dan LeCloche, and I make content.
I am Theo, and I'm a web and graphic designer.
All right, so with that, I have the honor of introducing Paloma Kennedy with Kennedy Law. Take it away. Thanks.
Yeah. So a little bit about myself. My name is Paloma Kennedy. I have a BA from UW-Madison, and I got my JD at WashU down in St. Louis. Unfortunately, I took the Missouri bar first, which meant that when we moved here, I had to take another bar. I wrote for the Daily Cardinal when I was here for undergrad, which was a fun endeavor. And then my background, so I am kind of tied into the entrepreneurial network. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. I've personally pitched in front of large investor groups for companies and raised over $500,000 in funding for them. And then I'm a very strong technical writer, which lends to my practice. I have numerous writing awards and have been published in a couple of legal journals. So to give you guys just some stats, last year, this is how many small businesses existed in the state of Wisconsin alone. And then in the United States, this is how many companies are created every month. So as you can see, there's obviously a lot of entrepreneurial just activity burgeoning throughout the state and throughout the U.S. I think that in terms of law firms and creating legal work for entrepreneurial groups, it's an area that needs more specific attention and focus. So Kennedy Law's focus and mission is to provide efficient, smart, proactive legal services that are also cost-effective for small businesses, medium-sized companies, or entrepreneurs just starting out. We are a boutique firm, but that doesn't mean boutique is expensive. It's usually synonymous with that definition, but it's just not necessarily always true. And so for us, boutique means that we have focused knowledge, real-world experience that's applied to entrepreneurs and small businesses that can actually help them and prevent them from having any sort of massive loss or any kind of lawsuit or thing like that. So services that are typically provided, starting all the way from formation, working with operating agreements, bylaws, all the formational side of things, and then moving on to the next step of funding, working with private placement memorandums, term sheets, things like that. And then once everyone is more established, do things like contract drafting, so anything from NDAs to partnership agreements, purchase agreement, I mean, you name it, contracts. And then also drafting for terms of service, privacy, things related to website disclaimers, anything that you might need if you're doing a more online business. So these are the types of companies that Kennedy Law has worked with actively already. As you can tell, there's no one specific group of small company or startup. Each company technically needs something different in their contracts, but for my background, I worked in pharmacy technology, so I have a lot of tech base and experience and knowledge in that realm. So it's very easy for me to come in with anyone who's more tech heavy or more complicated in their business plan and to understand it and provide them thoughtful drafting needs. But I also work with a whole bunch of other companies that are more topical and can more be explained on a normal layperson standard and easier to draft for, definitely. So Kennedy Law, I like to say we're not your grandfather's firm. We do a lot of things different than the traditional brick and mortar. Right now I'm working out of my home, so I have a virtual office. But in the near future, I am looking to build this into a multi-office company that will be across the state and maybe in a couple other Midwest states. The offices that I plan to build, or I guess lease, will be more modern and efficient. The plan is to be paper-free, which is probably hard to believe given the fact that all lawyers are paper-heavy, killing trees all the time. And then also with that paper-friendly, everything is tech-based. So right now I'm working through whatever can be most efficient for startups and small businesses. If that means having a Skype call or FaceTime or meeting at a coffee shop, it's all about flexibility. It has nothing to do with the traditional, here is my office, you will meet me at this time. I understand that in the real world, business owners have an on-the-go mentality, and it's not always feasible to do the, kind of more doctor office appointment type setting. And then when it's possible, flat rates are always used. Not always capable of doing that based on how complex the drafting might need to be, but in terms of an NDA or something that's very simple and straightforward, a lot of flat rate fees make it easier for companies to predict how much things are going to cost and how much they should set aside for legal. And then one of the things that Kennedy Law prides itself on is fast turnaround. If you have some sort of business deal that's pending, the last thing you need is 2 weeks' time from your attorney to get back to you with some sort of redraft, negotiation, or edit, or maybe feedback. So for us, the number one thing for you is to get your work done, completed as soon as possible so that you can move on and do more things that are relevant to your company. And then last but not least, our in-depth knowledge always plays a huge role in drafting. I always tell people, do not go online, do not take templates from old companies that you find online, even though they sound and look great. Using an attorney, regardless of whether you go to someone that specializes in businesses or small business startups and things like that, having a template off the internet just doesn't adequately protect you because it's not tailored to you and your specific offerings and what your company is doing. So I always tell people, bite the bullet, reach out to an attorney. So I like to say that we have less stress and more answers, and the reason being is Kennedy Law offers 30-minute free consultations. There's no obligations. There's a huge issue in the legal field where a lot of people are worried about incurring fees or getting sold and trying to have them come in and be retained. And so a lot of people will tend to self-lawyer before they reach out to an attorney just because it's scary or they're not really interested in getting retained by that firm. So for us, 30-minute free consultations, you can call anytime, usually can fit you in for quick questions. It makes sense for a lot of people who just have the need to get feelers out and understand what their potential legal needs will be in the coming months. And then flat rate 1-hour business planning and goal sessions. It's the consulting side of the business. Not everybody has legal needs up front. Sometimes they need some guidance on where they're going and what to plan for. And then I call it Favor King. I found that word online last year and I thought it was hilarious. So Favor King is our way of paying back people who refer to us. There's a really strong network in Madison and the Milwaukee area for entrepreneurialism and business growth. And so for anybody who's helping us to be connected more in the community, we're offering more time for them to call and get help and get some more answers or legal help, some topical stuff, things like that. And then one of the other things is we do is comprehensive document review. So perhaps that you're not doing a legal draft or something that's more legal in nature, but you just need some feedback. Maybe you're signing a document and you really don't want to pay X amount to have someone go through it step by step with you. Maybe you just want a one-page document summary that says, here's what you should be concerned about, here's what's good to go, and this is now in your court, next steps on you. And that makes it easier if you're really busy and you don't have a whole lot of running capital. It gets you some answers and it gets you one step closer to knowing what you're going to do. And then another thing that I really like to stress with Kennedy Law is that we have less legalese. So when I go in and I draft or I edit documents, you always have to have some legalese because it makes more sense to cut down on words. But there are some contracts, and I'm sure you've all seen them, where there are so many legal words, hereto, therefore, here under, that it becomes sort of Shakespearean, and it really doesn't benefit anyone. All it does is make it more complicated to understand, and it also clouds the ability for both parties entering into the contract to fully understand what the contract means. So drafting is always put on a more plain reading basis so that everyone involved knows what they're getting into. Excuse me. So in the pipeline, I think I've talked to some of you guys, especially Trezzy, about this, but I am working on a YouTube channel. I am hoping to have my first YouTube video up in February, and then in the coming months, I am working with partnerships with educational institutions to create more educational seminars and talks where people can come. There'll be a mix of free and paid for classes and courses, and it's just a way to bring the networks together, learn a little bit, give people guidance on just plain starting, or maybe that they're in their growth phase and they really need some guidance on what kind of legal work they might need in the future. And then that is my Instagram if you would like to connect with me. And per 1 million cups, I thought I would ask the question. I think Kennedy Law at this point is looking for ways to connect further with the entrepreneurial networks. I'm already working really tough, hard to get more connected and be out there and networking, but there's only so much time in the day. So, I ask you guys as a 1 million cup network to, bridge any sort of communication or personal relationships with people that that could help us get more involved. And obviously, we would like to have more name recognition in the community. I'm working on that. And today, I have with me swag. But you have to give me a business card, unless I already have yours, then you could just come and get one. But I got these cool, they're slap bracelets, but they're not for kids. They're reflective. So if you're running, jogging, walking, taking your dog out, then you could put it pretty much anywhere because they are slap bracelets. They fit pretty much on anything. So it's kind of a nice thing that, you're more visible when you're at night.
Is it just you?
Right now, yes.
Okay. I didn't really pay a lot of attention to when you got your degree and everything else. Can you just expand a little bit more on your background? How long you've been doing this, what you did before you started your firm, and what really you consider to be your specialty, your number one, number two specialties?
Okay. I'll repeat it. I got my JD from Washington University in St. Louis, and then after graduating, I became general counsel of a pharmacy technology company. And so I was there for a little over a year. I was relocated to Madison, not up to me. My husband matched at UW for his medical residency. So when we came back here, I took the bar and I decided it was telecommuting for my prior position. And I decided it was a good opportunity to create my own firm. And so what I did was, they're now my client. So I do hourly work for them instead of being in-house.
And how many years you had your firm?
I started it last year. I moved here in June.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sure you had said this, but
No, you're fine. No, you're fine.
And again, what is your one or two top things that you feel you're really good at?
Yeah, well, contracts. I would say number one, contracts. And then number two, I think would be guidance overall in terms of where people are going and how to continue on the path to growth. Done a lot of work at the end of my law school career in helping pitch and create companies through an externship program. So I had a lot of experience creating bylaws, operating agreements, pitching and receiving funding, all of the just fundamental steps in creating a new entity. So besides contract drafting and technical writing and that side of things and being protective for your company, I would say overall business coaching and guidance.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sort of a layperson in every field you've talked about, but from what I understand, this seems a lot like LegalZoom or like a lot of things that people like are already out there. So is the difference between this, the focus on like entrepreneurial minded people and like sort of creating a niche in that business already that LegalZoom already covers a lot? Or how do you plan to like compete with the kind of online?
It hurts me that you mentioned LegalZoom. Okay, so I guess I should explain. LegalZoom is usually no better than going online and finding an old contract or some sort of template. I guess it suffices if you do not want to think too far in advance and you just need something now. But one of the issues, and I think that this is kind of a small case study from my experience, I've had clients in the past who've come to me and said, someone is taking all of my intellectual property and replicating it. And I looked at the NDA and it was just garbage. And they had found it online. And so, you can't think of the fundamental documents that you have at the very beginning as not meaning anything later on, especially if you're growing. So, unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who will get contracts drafted both through a LegalZoom type thing where it's all topical and it's one size fits all, which is a terrible approach. And then there's the secondary, which you go to a law firm and perhaps it's a name that everybody recognizes and it's not necessarily focused on your specific area of law, and you come out and the contract doesn't really cover all the realms of your business.
So the LegalZoom is like the WebMD of law.
Yes. It's a good analogy, yes. Yes.
I like to think in analogies and continuums. If LegalZoom's over here, off-the-rack suit, over here is bespoke, custom measured, on that continuum, where do you place yourself?
I think I would say the bespoke side, minus the price tag. Yeah, just from the perspective that, and we can continue the analogy, if you do the off-the-rack, you might have something that fits, but it's not attractive, right? And if you do bespoke, it's going to not only fit, but it'll also be attractive. And so, taking that analogy and placing it across the legal spectrum, if you have a contract drafted for a partnership agreement, and you take something and you get it done quick and easy, it might fit for the time, but it's not going to benefit you in the long run, or it might not adequately protect you. And so what Kennedy Law does is it comes in and it covers all the spectrums. And so one of the things that I like to do with a lot of my clients is I like to talk with them about what they see they're going to do in the future, what they're offering in depth, and really get to know the company on a personal level, like I'm running it or like I'm a part of it. And then that allows me to draft a contract so that all of the bases are covered. And some people think that the contracts I draft are a little too tough, but in my opinion, you always want to plan for the worst case scenario, the worst client, what happens when your product gets lost, all of the absolutely worst scenarios.
Quick follow-up on that. So that longitudinal relationship is a huge part of what you're offering.
Yes and no, I suppose. I guess if you're in the very outset and you're not going to exhibit quick growth, it might be a quick relationship at the beginning and then we'll talk later. Whereas a business that's already experiencing growth and they have ongoing business needs, that'll be an ongoing relationship. Sorry, you first.
I just wanted to support what you're saying. I work with a lot of startups, make a lot of recommendations. Legal is always part of those recommendations. Would never recommend LegalZoom, ever. What you have to do is think in terms, there are some free resources for some of the basics that aren't too bad, but what you should think about is what are the repercussions if this thing turns south? That's really what you're trying to deal with here. And if there's really no repercussion, like it's a standard, I'm going to sell you this, and you're going to pay me this, probably don't need a lawyer for that. But anything else that could turn really bad on you, that's when that's the rule of thumb I usually give people.
And I would argue even selling things can sometimes require an attorney, choking hazards, things like that. Sorry.
I would expect nothing less from you.
Why go out on your own instead of joining a firm is number one. And number two is why don't more people at your level of experience start their own firms?
Two very good questions. So to answer your first one, part of joining a law firm is that you abide by their pre-existing culture. So you don't get to come in as an associate and run in the way that you want to run your clients. You're stuck kind of doing what the firm wants you to do and how to handle them. And unless you're doing more of a rainmaker position where you're out canvassing town and looking for clients, you're pretty much behind a desk and they give you your clients, and it's a very black and white relationship. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, when you go to an attorney, the relationship isn't a very personal one. You go in, they get the work done, you pay them, and then usually you're like, yeah, that guy who overcharged me for things. But, you know, I think the main reason why a lot of attorneys don't start their own practice is because it's scary. You know, it's a lot of work to get out there and to bring in clients and get to know everyone in the community. And a lot of attorneys will come out of law school and there is a large pre-existing assumption that when you come out you will work in a law firm, and that is just what everybody does. And so when you go out on your own, it's very rare, but I always like to tell people actually didn't exist unless somebody decided to go out on their own. So at some point someone has to do it, otherwise you'll never have your own practice.
I'm curious about the level of support then that you have gotten or seen from your colleagues when you say, you got your JD a couple years ago and I'm going to go start. I can't imagine that they're. What are the reactions that your colleagues say when you say I'm going out on my own?
It's mixed. Some people, I guess it depends on where they're coming from. If they've always in their heart wanted to start their own practice or had their own practice and then left it for whatever reason and want to go back, those people are always, you know, I guess you could put them in the jealous category, right? You're doing something that they want to do. And then there's the people who are lifers with large law firms and they don't understand it at all because they're not entrepreneurial in mind. And then you kind of have the middle ground where, you know, you have the traditional attorney who wants to have that salary every week or every 2 weeks and not have a question. Just get in, do the work, get home, be paid. Any other questions?
Well, I'll just make a comment. You mentioned you're a serial entrepreneur. Go back in that series. Where did that start?
I guess it would be undergrad. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, so my parents started an own restaurant for most of my childhood, and then my parents have started numerous companies on their own, just very entrepreneurial in nature. My dad holds a whole bunch of patents, so I kind of grew up in this family where, you know, it's expected that you're doing a whole lot of things out on your own and exploring ideas. And my husband thinks that I'm crazy because I have too many ideas, but yeah, I think for me it started in undergrad. I pitched a few companies while I was at UW when they're in their business plan competition, and I had started a small company when I was in college. I didn't see it to fruition because I was in college, but you know, I think that it started there and it just kind of grew, and I mean to this day I still have probably too many ideas in my mind, but that's a good thing.
Right.
If
we're looking to refer somebody to you, are we sending them to your website, or how do we?
It's up to anyone who wants to refer. I mean, I have cards if you guys want to take them. You feel free to connect on email. I have a lot of people who refer by just CCing me on an email because it's more laid back. A lot of my clients, because they're entrepreneurs or small businesses, love to meet at coffee shops. So I have too many points at Barriques right now through the Belly app. But yeah, no, I'm flexible. So, you know, whatever anyone feels comfortable doing, just phone call, email. I text message that number. I have a lot of people who love to text message. Yeah.
So you had talked about kind of the culture of your practice being really important and why you're independent. And you've also talked about building on and growing, expanding into multiple offices. So have you kind of defined the key values or what those differentiators are so that you can maintain that culture as you grow?
Yes, definitely. And I mean, do you want me to list a couple of them, or?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like what you see as the differentiators, like that would really make your practice stand out differently from these more traditional ones as you grow and have to create more infrastructure for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost would be reliance on technology and reliance on easily being available to be contacted. So, you know, I tell a lot of my clients, if you have a question, just call me. You don't need to email me and set up a time to talk. If I don't pick up, I'll call you back. It'll be the same day. I think that one of the biggest issues with law practices today is that they are still in the mindset that the client and the attorney relationship is at arm's length. And in order to provide strong legal representation for anyone, it really can't have that distance. You have to be involved and you have to have updates. And so I tell a lot of my clients that are small businesses that are exhibiting major growth right now, if you have something come up, call me. I won't bill you for it. I would rather you call me and you tell me what's going on than for you to be worried about being billed and not call me, and then there's a storm that hits and I wasn't apprised of it. So those are a couple of the key things that, you know, I really think are going to stay along the same path as the firm grows, along with a couple others.
Excuse me. How are you finding that it's easy to communicate that to your prospective clients and to the network that you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's very easy just from the perspective that when I have a client talk to me, I tell them, you know, I'm always available. My door's always open. And then, you know, they'll do the first touch point to test the waters, and then I respond, and then it's always easy going after that.
Tagging onto that, it seems your communication strategy right now is very one-to-one, which I applaud, and it's perfectly on brand with who you are and the way you want to roll. But a big part of what you were talking about was how do you force multiply your sales staff of one? And I would say, number one, coming here on a regular basis is a great way, because if you're an entrepreneur looking for people who are born natural entrepreneurs that you share a lot of the same DNA with, this is the place to do it. It's not the only one, and I would encourage members of this group to supply you with other outlets for those communication things. But also tagging on to what Diana said, she was kind of implying right now you're a lawyer. To be a lawyer is to be a commodity, unless you're not a commodity and you're a brand. So I don't want to put words in Diana's mouth, but it's like, how can you communicate your brand to more people and get away from just the one-to-one, which is proof of concept and proof of quality and service, but extend that to a broader audience? And I think that's something to really think about.
Yeah, no, I think that right now, because it's me and the name are one, and I think that as I expand and I hire other attorneys, it'll really just come down to personality. And the hiring process will have to be related to how social people are, how open they are to being available, things like that. I mean, you can't just take any old person off the street and put them in your company and have them mesh. It's the same thing with a law firm.
Same thing with any business, right? Employee engagement. As you bring in more people, you want to make sure that those people fit in with the culture that you want for your company.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest problem.
Right.
Of firms that I recommend. They'll start out with your culture, which I really like for entrepreneurs, and then there's like this switch that flips, and they start thinking more like a traditional law firm of billing as much as possible. And too many times I've negotiated a price, and then it comes in 3 times higher, and I can get it down to the negotiated price, but now I have to spend energy doing that. And that's the last time I recommend that law firm. So just keep that in mind as you add employees, because that's always going to be a challenge with this culture.
No, absolutely. And I've had firsthand experience working with small companies prior to me becoming barred in all of the states. Just from the perspective that I have seen the intake of billables and seen paralegals billing at 300. And I think to myself, why would you ever attempt to bill this to a startup? You know, I mean, the intention is to keep you as a client as you grow, not to ostracize you or bankrupt you.
And that's an important attitude, yeah.
Yes.
So, we're working with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I guess it seems like you want to give them a price that they can afford, which is usually not a lot, but it seems like kind of a risky crowd to work with, because the failure rate is kind of high, and, you know, I mean, I guess you're looking at kind of the expecting that some of them are going to turn into gold or something. I mean, like, I guess, but being an attorney and, you know, in your market, people are charging a high rate. I mean, is there, you know, I don't know, I think there's a lot of complicated issues regarding price, and, like, you know, if people expect that that's the price you are and whether you can deliver the service. I mean, you know, as a professional, I mean, it's like, you know, I do work for people and I charge a low price. It's hard for me to give them the best service. So I guess there's some complicated issues regarding that. And do you feel any of those sort of pressures?
I think that, you know, pricing, obviously it's an issue among, you know, just competing and competitor lawyers and law firms and things like that. But I think the ultimate goal is to stay at a price that startups and small businesses that are growing can continue to afford, and that lower price allows just continuing legal services to be provided without creating financial hurdles. And from that perspective, I think that there is going to be a cap at some point where even if the firm grows exponentially, there will be, based on your company size, there will have to be some sort of limit on the fees, simply because we won't be able to continue to help the people that we've been helping if we continue to raise prices like a traditional firm exponentially until you're at $500 an hour, which makes no sense for the niche market we're serving.
So along those lines, do you imagine like graduated pricing where, a brand new startup thing you would, price somehow differently than an established firm?
Yeah, and that's true too, based on how much work is going to be involved. A larger small business or someone who's more on the medium size is going to have much more complex stuff coming through. So, it makes sense to have a lower price for someone who's just starting out because you can do it for that price. Yes?
What is your plan for retaining these small business startups as they grow and they do get more complicated? Is there a strategy that you have in place for that?
I think retention is just organic. My experience as general counsel of a pharmacy technology company, I saw really complicated stuff on a regular basis. So from that perspective, I don't think it'll be hard to keep clients as they grow and things get more complicated. But in terms of growth of Kennedy Law in general and to having multiple attorneys and support staff and whatnot, I think it will be important to keep clients with the same attorney that they had originally to continue that relationship instead of having the traditional perspective where, I'm too busy now, here's so-and-so who you've never worked with before, they don't understand it like I do, and they're going to come in and try and come up to speed 4 years into your growth plan. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Is an operative analogy for you a pediatrician? What I mean by that is having 3 daughters, we saw one pediatrician for all 3 for 18 years. And it took them from from being a tiny baby all the way through a young adult, and knew their history, all that stuff. And by the way, my wife would not change that relationship because of the tightness of that relationship.
No, I think that, yes, very unique analogy, but yes, definitely. I would say the point at which a company would outgrow Kennedy Law would be the point at which they want to hire in-house counsel. But until then, the legal needs are never so constant. They're not going to hire Kennedy Law for litigation matters. That's just not something that
Do you do IP?
I am working on onboarding an IP attorney right now.
Okay, fair enough. That's the only time I would think of that.
I wish I could do IP. I actually looked into taking that. I was like, 2 bars, might as well take another one. And I can't do it.
No, that's not what I'd recommend. I'd recommend, though, that you have a loyal connection.
Yes. No, I have strong referral points for clients right now, and then I'm continuing to work with, I'm trying to pull them over to the dark side. So. Any other questions? Time for one more? Well, thank you.
Normally we have a mug to give away, but I wasn't supplied one.
For shame!
Come back.
For shame!
In LinkedIn, I don't think so, because I only did Instagram today so far. So.
Good presentation. I like what you